Ellis here. Welcome to the latest episode of the weekly Roundup podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Darnel Giovani, aka Mystic Black. How's it going, mate?
It's going well, man. So happy to be here. I've been thinking about this one for a long time, and of course, love watching you guys and your podcast every week.
Yeah, we're coming off a big pay-per-view event, so usually the events after, there's not a lot going on. It lets us down, but I think this one we've got coming up, UFC Vegas 38, got a few big fights on it, especially the main event, which we'll jump into straight away. Thiago Santos, Johnny Walker. I'll hand it straight over to you. What do you make of it?
The two guys in that UFC 205 light heavyweight division that never take a step back. You know, Thiago Santos, a lot of classics fights he's had with the likes of Jimmy Manuwa. And you know, Johnny Walker, this guy literally goes balls to the wall in every single one of his fights. These are not two guys who aren't as technically sound. I mean, sometimes Thiago Santos is, but Johnny Walker is just swinging and he is throwing. And you know, these guys are going to come after each other meet right in the middle of the cage. So it's a very good main event. I know some people probably feel like Johnny Walker doesn't deserve a main event because, you know, he's kind of been back and forth with his wins and losses. Same thing as Thiago Santos, but it's a perfect styles matchup.
Yeah, in terms of, you know, styles, this is a brilliant fight. You just know what's going to happen. They're going to go and sling it out and see who wins. And for me, Thiago Santos, this is a great fight for him. Probably the type of fight he should have had when he first come back. I think, you know, after, I think it was 2 years layoff with both ACLs went or something along them lines, they threw him straight back in with Glover and then they threw him in with Alexander Rakic, which it really doesn't get any tougher. You know, you're looking at the title contender, potential future champion by this time next month. And then you've also got Rakic, who seems to be like number one or number two next in line. So Thiago Santos got through to the Wolves and he didn't do too great. I'd say this is a nice step down, you know, all respect to Johnny Walker. He's not at that level yet. And if Thiago Santos wants to remain at that level, he should be beating him. But at the same time, as you said, Johnny Walker's a dangerous man on his night. He's capable of knocking anyone out. Do you have a pick for this one?
I think Thiago Santos this is the perfect matchup for him because, you know, with Rakic and with Glover, he had to worry about the takedown. He had to worry about getting off of his back. Johnny Walker is just not known for that. He's going to be there in his face, standing up. And Thiago Santos just has to be a little bit more technical than he is and kind of just wait for him to throw something wild. And I think Thiago Santos can get a finish here. And I think he gets a finish pretty early, maybe in the second round. I think Thiago Santos gets a knockout.
Yeah, I really do think this is a must-win fight for Thiago because if he doesn't, where does he go? You know, at his age and he's below Johnny Walker. Who'd you fight after that? I'm not sure. Whereas Johnny Walker can potentially come again. He's still young. He's still got lots on the table. So I do think this is a big fight for Santos. I expect him to win. I can't really get away from the fact that Corey Anderson, you know, who's not really known as a puncher, was able to take Walker out. So someone like Santos should really have a field day with him if he's anywhere near his prime. But, you know, maybe them injuries took a toll and maybe his best days are gone and Walker will show that. But if I'm a betting man, I am a betting man, I'll be putting money on Santos for this one. And I agree with you, pretty early. I think maybe first round, second round knockout. But for as long as it lasted, I think it'll be a bit of a war.
Yeah, no, and it'll be perfect because we haven't seen Anthony Smith against any two of these guys, so we get fresh matchups no matter who wins this bout. And of course, we have Alexander Rakic waiting there as well. But I don't know. I kind of feel like he's going to wait for something. He keeps saying, "Oh, I'll fight Anthony Smith. I'm down. I'm ready around Christmas time." But they don't have time in that. These cards are filling up. They like to put Anthony Smith as main events. They put Rakic as the main event as well, even though that was off a canceled fight. But a lot of fresh matchups to be made within that division.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I know that's the fight they're angling for, both fighters, but it's not one I particularly want to see. The first fight was pretty, like, it was dull. It weren't a great fight at all. And then, as you said, we've got Santos and Walker, two exciting fighters, putting them in with Anthony Smith might be the way to go. And then also Rakic, I do think he is a cut above Smith, Santos, Walker at the minute. And if Jiri doesn't get that title shot on at UFC 267, he's going to want to fight soon. And I think maybe that's the fight to go with. But as you said, lots going on at the division. We both think Santos will emerge victorious, but I guess we'll see on fight night. And we'll move on to the next one. Kevin Holland back in action. Another guy taking a couple steps down. He takes on Kyle Dorcas. Tell me about this fight.
I feel like the UFC is pretty much setting Kevin Holland up for a gimme fight here. You know how they always say, oh, they shouldn't give somebody a tune-up fight or anything like that. I feel like this is a tune-up fight for Kevin Holland. You know, this is a perfect styles matchup for him. He's not going to have to deal with somebody who's super heavy on the grappling. To be honest, I think Kevin Holland might go for a takedown in this fight. It's a better setup for it, and maybe he wants to show that ground game he's learning from Johnny Hendricks right now, which he is training with down in Texas. Originally, he was at AKA for about a week or two, but he noticed there were some other middleweights there that he possibly might have to fight soon. So he took his way back down to Texas. Johnny Hendrick, who's a full-time police officer now, took the time out of his schedule now to train with Kevin Holland. And I think they're inviting some other guys for him to get that help as well, because, you know, Johnny Hendricks, NCAA wrestling champion. That's a perfect thing for Kevin Holland, and that's what he needs, and that's something he can get to gain that confidence back, because he might have lost that confidence taking those fights against Marvin Vettori and Derek Brunson as well. Even though he had time for the Derek Brunson one, he didn't have that much time in between Brunson and Vettori, which I don't think was the smartest fight for him to take. But I guess, you know, Kevin Holland's a guy who likes to be active. He likes to make a lot of money. This is going to be the time period where he takes his time in between fights so he can get back up there to that top 10, then maybe that top 5, because Kevin Holland has a lot of potential to be really good. He just needs to take his time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's similar to the main event where we've got a step down, but I'd say Kevin Holland has taken, you know, several steps down in this one. Kyle Dorcas, he's a fun fighter to watch, but, you know, 1 and 2 in the UFC, he's not really looked a world beater or a potential title contender, and that's what Kevin Holland was at the end of 2020. You know, people forget quite quickly that he was in the talks for Fighter of the Year. A lot of people named him Fighter of the Year, and Dana White said he's one to watch in 2021, and it's all gone pear-shaped. But it's gone pear-shaped against 2, you know, elite level fighters in Vettori and Brunson, so there's no shame in that. And as you said, I do expect them to get back in the win column. I think Dorcas could be a tricky customer if he's smart. He should be testing that wrestling as much as he can. But as you say, I think Kevin Holland is still legit. He's still got a lot to show, and I expect them to come out to this one looking pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go Kevin Holland on this one. I think Kevin Holland finishes it pretty fast. I think it's going to go maybe the first round, TKO, Kevin Holland.
And before that, we've got what I would predict. You know, if, as I said earlier, I'm a betting man. If I'm calling fight tonight in this one, you got Alex Cowboy Oliveira against Nicole Price. It's got banger written all over it. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, Nico Price, Alex Oliveira, 2 guys who are super exciting in any fight that they have. Not guys who have gotten in that top 15, unfortunately. And I don't know. Do I think they're going to get there? Maybe not. They're always going to be that guy who's just like right outside, and you just want that exciting fight from them, unless this is where one of them just turns a page. But I feel like Nico Price has had the more impressive performances as of late. Alex Oliveira is kind of maybe on a down slope a little bit. You know, he's had a lot of wars in there, and it's definitely showing a little bit of a wear and tear on him and in his body. But I feel like this is 100% gonna be fight of the night. These guys are gonna go toe to toe for sure. We got 2 fights that might be fight of the night. Might be the main event, might be this fight. It's just a lot of guys who would not be taking steps backwards. So I think this one is gonna be excellent.
Yeah, and I totally agree with your point. It's 2 guys who have been on the peripherals of the top 15. Can one of them make a run for it? And I think Nico Price can. I feel like Cowboy, all due respect, has maybe had his day. He's been in a lot of wars. He's a bit older. Nico Price, as of late, his record may not look great on paper, but I think he's done pretty well. For my money, he beat Donald Cerrone, which is a good win. And yeah, I think throughout his record, you look at it, is littered with some pretty decent names. And I think if he can get a win over Alex Oliveira, maybe one more, and build momentum, you know, this time next year, he could be a ranked fighter. He's got it in him. You know, that win over James Vick was a big one. Randy Brown, Randy Brown beats Oliveira, so, you know, a bit of MMA math there for you. But as I say, I think this is going to be fight of the night. Pretty sure of it. I expect these 2 to be walking away with a bonus either way. But if Nico Price really wants to prove that he's a potential top 15 guy, maybe it's not fight tonight. Maybe he goes out there and starches him, and that's how it looks. But for me, it's Nico Price's to lose. I think he should be winning this one, and if he doesn't, I think then I'm wrong about how good he could potentially be. But I'm hoping I'm right, and I hope either way we see a really fun fight.
Yeah, I think Nico takes this one as well. I know, and if Alex Oliveira loses this fight, that's going to be 3 in a row that he's lost. And you know how the UFC is nowadays. Even if you lose 2 fights, sometimes if you don't show that worth in there, it's a cut for you. So if Alex Oliveira doesn't win this one, I see him maybe going to a different organization, maybe a PFL, a Bellator. I don't think his career is over, but maybe not in the upper echelon of the UFC welterweight division.
Yeah, and it's 2 first round, defeats back to back. So it's not like, Sam Alvey's the guy people point to. Sam Alvey's always in there fighting until the final bell, at least.
Yeah.
So if you're going in and getting mopped in the first round, potentially 3 times in a row now, I think it could be the end for him. I think he's 38 years old. He may have missed weight. He missed weight a couple of bouts as well. So it all is heading in that direction. But for me, Price has got that style where he can be hit. He can be hurt. So it's not impossible for Oliveira in this one. It's a good fight, and that's why we're predicting it might be a fight of the night. But for me, I think Price should take it. I'm expecting them to.
Hey, Florida boy right there, man. Nico Price. I'm a Florida boy too, so definitely going to be rooting for him.
And before that, we've got Misha Sherkanov. Seems to be his middleweight debut against
Middleweight debut.
Christoph Jokto. What do you think of this one?
I think this is a great move for Misha. He's been struggling a little bit at a 205. Just couldn't put that together. Just put a nice streak together. He was dealing with guys who were just way oversized, as you can see from his last loss to Ryan Spann, which Ryan Spann, not your most technical guy, but still just use that size and just like length to get over on Misha. I think this is a great move for him against to come down to the middleweight division. And then he's taken off Christoph Jotko, another guy who's put together a streak before, kind of took a loss to Sean Strickland, who's on a hot streak right now. So not like it was a bad loss, but this can get Christoph easily back into that talk at middleweight in that top 15. I don't know is he still ranked Christoph at middleweight? Not anymore, right?
I think he dropped out.
He dropped out. Okay. So he just dropped out. We still got a guy like Uriah Hall, who he had a very competitive fight with, that maybe the winner of this fight can fight a Uriah Hall if Uriah Hall still wants to do this, because sometimes I'm a little skeptical to see how Uriah still wants to continue with his MMA career, because sometimes he has that mental lapse when he's in there. But I see this definitely. I think Jotko can win this fight. I think it's definitely a winnable fight for Jotko. Sometimes Misha looks a little old in there. I don't even think he's that old, but he looks a little slow, and I think Jotko can use that speed against Misha in this fight. I'm gonna go with Christoph Jotko in this one.
Misha's an interesting guy, and this is an interesting move, really, for me. He's got some big wins at light heavyweight. Jimmy Crute with the most recent one, Krylov before that, Kutalaba. They're really strong wins, but then, as you said, sometimes you just get outgunned in there. Ryan Spann, who isn't necessarily a top tier guy. Johnny Walker, the same. You can let him off on Glover Teixeira and Volkan Oezdemir because they're, a pair of savages. But I'm really interested to see how he looks. I think this could be the move for him. And Jokto, it's a good fight, but it's not an, unwinnable fight. He's not getting through to the Lions. It's a very winnable fight. I think it's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be competitive for 3 rounds, and either guy's going to probably, pull out a split decision. I think it's going to be very tight, and I honestly don't want to pick this one. I would lean towards Jokto just because I've seen him at the weight. I know how good he is and how good he can be. Sirkanov, can he even make 185? That's a big drop, 205 to 185. Can he make it first off? And then how much does it take out of him? So very interested to see, and probably my ultimate pick will come on fight night when I see him walking in the ring, standing across from each other, because you never know, Misha might be, so much bigger and do a fantastic weight cut and look fantastic. And then all of a sudden I'm on that hype train. So yeah, I'm a fickle guy, and we'll see what happens on fight night.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I saw him over here at PFL and he looked a little svelte and like skinny, and I didn't know he was dropping down to middleweight. So I guess that was telling right there, but I think he'll make it. He's already cutting down pretty small, and he's not that big of a guy, so I think he can do it.
Yeah, and before that, opening up the main card, Aspen Lad against Macy Chison. Am I saying that right? I'm terrible at names.
Macy Chison. Yep, you got it.
Macy Chison. Great fight, and it's a tough one for Aspen Lad to come back to. You know, obviously she's 26 years old. She's kind of got the world in front of her. She seems like a potential title holder in the future, but 2 years off coming in against someone like Macy, who, you know, a tough girl, definitely. Can she get the win here?
Macy has been streaking already. She's got that two fights in a row that she's won. One over Marion Renault, who just retired recently, who's a very, very tough competitor. I think Aspen Lad, as long as she does not have a weight cutting issue, she's just somebody who's supposed to be up there fighting for a title soon. You know, she had that opportunity a couple years ago when she fought against Jermaine Durandamy, and she ended up losing pretty fast. But I feel like she was struggling with a weight cut there. I think if you remember when she was on the scale, she was literally shaking when she was making weight, which I felt was crazy for the UFC to let somebody fight when they're in that kind of a condition. But if Aspen Lad has been really focusing on keeping her weight low, recovering from that terrible injury that she had and the surgery she had to have after that, if she can recover well from that, I think this is an easy fight for her to win in a sense of her wrestling is just really good. She can take Macy Chison down at will if she wants. I think this is a perfect comeback fight for her, perfect setup, perfect matchup. I think Aspen Lad takes this one pretty easy.
Yeah, and as you say, injuries and weight cuts, like trying to keep your weight down, is not necessarily two things that go hand in hand. So I'm a big fan of Aspen Lad, but anytime I see people taking, you know, a couple years off in the middle, you know, in the, you know, the prime of the career, it is a bit worrying. But the fact that she is only 26, I think she's going to have the bounce back ability. I think she's potentially going to go out there and put on a brilliant performance and, you know, get back in everyone's minds again. Because as you said, she was on the verge of a title shot. It didn't go away against Durandamy, who is, you know, besides the main girls, you know, Valentina and Amanda Nunes, she's probably the best of the rest. She is a fantastic fighter. So no shame in that. Very young, and she can bounce back. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing her. And as I said, I wouldn't be surprised if she's one of the people walking away with a performance bonus and everyone's talking about her as a potential contender come Sunday. Yeah, very exciting to have her back. And the rest of the card, we won't get too deep into it, but I just want to hand it over to you. Is there any names, any fights that stick out that you want to chat about?
Betch Koheda has her last fight here. I know maybe Betch has not been the greatest in that division, but it's a retirement fight. She did fight for a title before against Ronda Rousey when she went on that hot streak, when she's beating all of Ronda Rousey's friends. So it's going to be unfortunate to see her. I mean, it's going to be unfortunate to see her go because, you know, we've been watching her for a long time. But the one I'm looking for the most on that preliminary card is Antonina Shevchenko against Casey O'Neill. Whew. Casey O'Neill, of course, has been looking amazing in her past two fights. Antonina Shevchenko, you know, that's Valentina's sister, who's maybe not as good as her, but she's definitely coming out of a very good camp and off of a championship camp with Valentina. And when they're in sync like that, I feel like that's usually when Antonina can win. I'm looking forward to that one big time because if Casey O'Neill can get over Antonina Shevchenko, that can shoot her up real fast, and we can finally have some kind of a contender that can give Valentina some issues somewhere, especially Casey O'Neill with her jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, well, Antonina, it's obviously she gets compared to her sister, which is unfair. And just based on her own skills, she's a good fighter. You know, that win over Lipsky was a really good one. But then she has had a couple, you know, Chikugian, that was a dominant loss. Andrea Lee got her in an armbar. So it hasn't all gone her way. And this is a good fight. You know, Casey O'Neill seems to be one of them up-and-comers. Quite a bit of hype around there. This is the acid test. Can she pass it? And then, obviously, as you said before, that Beth Colher, it's actually really great to see her getting that retirement fight because I think last year she was cut. I'm pretty sure they cut her, and then she said she wants one more fight, and then they brought her back. So it's nice that they're giving her that send off because, as you said, she's not a champion. She's not this type of fighter, but she's been a pioneer for the women's MMA, and she was there at the start, and it's great to see her finish it off in the UFC.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we'll move on now. Obviously, we be the night before that, Bellator London, you know, really great card, topped by a brilliant fight and brilliant rematch that we've all been waiting for since the first fight. Douglas Lemur against Michael Page. What do you make of this?
I knew that this fight was going to happen one day again. When was it going to happen? I don't know, but the fact that Douglas Lemur has been having his, you know, his little struggles with these grappling heavy guys, which they just keep getting better. that Bellator welterweight division is very scary. You can compare some guys in the UFC to these guys, and they can beat them, I feel. But Michael Page, who is a guy I used to be upset with because he just kept fighting these, I'm just going to say, these cans back in the day, and they weren't giving real competitive fights. Then he started getting those really good victories over Rickles, I believe, and he was in the welterweight tournament. He beat Paul Daly, which he did pretty well with the grappling. You know, Paul Daly kept trying to take him down, and he was getting up, and then he ran, unfortunately, into Douglas Lima. He rocked Douglas Lima, which I was completely surprised when he rocked Douglas Lima. There, I'm like, oh man, okay, maybe this guy is just really good here. But Douglas Lima ended up knocking him out in that fight. Kind of took his time, was very patient, and I feel like Douglas Lima knows exactly how to fight Michael Page. You just can't just be a target standing in front of him. You got to move around. You got to just make Michael Page go to you, and then you can counter strike with him. So I feel like Douglas Lima knows what to do here. Michael Page he's won his past couple fights, but once again, they kind of put him on a streak of fighting guys with not the biggest names, not the toughest guys. And now he's going to run back into the Douglas Lima again when he's coming off these fights that have not been the toughest. This is going to be pretty hard. Douglas Lima's had hard challenges his past couple fights. So I feel like this is going to be a very tough one for Michael Page. I know it's in London. I know they're trying to probably set him up something for a title, but I don't know. I'm something is just telling me Douglas Lima is going to pull it off again. It's going to be unfortunate because it's going to be in front of Michael Page's hometown, but I see Douglas Lima winning this one almost in the same exact fashion as he did the first.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing you've got to think about. You know, Page, he is a confidence fighter. Everything he does is brash and he looks slick. But how could you go in there and do all these things when they're literally, you know, all week Bellator are going to be playing that video of him getting knocked out cold. So I'll be interested to see how he approaches this one. And I'm also interested, as you said, about the level of opponents. You know, Lima, it might not have gone his way the last few fights, the last couple of fights, but he's been in with literally the tip top of the sport. You know, Mousasi, arguably, you know, the best middleweight on the planet. Amasov, brilliant performance when he beat Lima there as well. Rory McDonald's one of the top guys. So at the same time, Michael Page hasn't been fighting the necessary contenders to go through the ranks and earn a shot at the title. But I think they're just banking on the fact that he might be able to catch Lima coming in and then he gets the title shot. And there he is, the big British star. So very interested to see this. I don't necessarily think, despite his losses, Lima looks any worse than he was in that Page fight. So obviously don't write Page off. He's in there and he's got a chance. He's a brilliant knockout artist, but I think Lima, again, will be a bit too crafty. I'm not sure if he'll be able to nail him, but I feel like over the course of the round, he might just get the better of him and maybe eventually force a stoppage.
Let me ask you this question. So the last 3 fights, Michael Page has done catch weight, which is 175. Do you think that's for any particular reason?
No, and I think this is the problem with Page. He seems to have too much sway in in what happens with Bellator. So in terms of his opponents, why isn't he fighting the top guys? Why is he allowed to come in at whatever weight he seems to want to come in at? You know, if you want to be a welterweight title contender or want to win the belt, you should be making 170 or at least 171 consistently to do it. But it just seems like he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to, and they make concessions for him. But there's no shortcuts to the top. And I don't think Lima ever takes shortcuts. You know, we've seen him go up to middleweight when he didn't necessarily need to, taking these tough fights, fighting everyone that comes in front of him and looking impressive for the most part. So I think that will show on fight nights. You know, these little shortcuts that Page is taking, I think they might come back to haunt him.
Yeah, I think it will come back to haunt him. And if he doesn't win this fight and they still do not give him the top tier of that welterweight division, like, I don't even understand how he's ranked I think he's ranked number 2, right? In that Bellator welterweight division, but he's beaten maybe one person that's ranked before him, which doesn't make sense to me. You're fighting all these other guys who are not even ranked, some guys who are not even in the Bellator realm at all anymore. That has to be figured out. He has to be fighting the Neiman Gracies. Maybe a Paul Daly matchup again. They do a part 2 of that. You know, there's so many other matchups, but they just keep giving him these favorable matchups. And if they're going to keep doing that, you know what? I'm not going to be that excited to watch Michael Venom Page. I know he's an exciting guy to watch do something crazy in there, but I'm in here for real competition. And if he doesn't want to fight real competition, then I don't really want to watch him.
Yeah, but we say that, but then all he needs is one shot and the world go crazy. Because
the world goes crazy.
If Page wins this fight, he's going to look spectacular. That's just the way it is. He'll look spectacular. He'll get a sensational knockout, and then everyone back on the train. And this is the joy of fighting. That this is probably what he's banking on getting this viral knockout, looking sensational, and then all of a sudden he's the best welterweight at Bellator I've got again. So it's a high risk, high reward. But if he loses, back of the queue, and he really is going to have to start fighting some real fights, to earn his way back into contention. But if he wins, he's absolutely correct, and everything he's done and everything that we're questioning right now has led to the moments that he wanted. So I think he'll be pretty happy with that, and Bellator will be very happy with that.
Yeah, Bellator wants that superstar in him so much, even though he is kind of a superstar, but they just want him to get that huge victory to where just like, oh, this is our man right here. This is our man. And if he wins that, they're immediately going to give him a title shot. But I don't see him being the Bellator's welterweight champion, which is Amasov, right?
Yeah, and Michael Page is 34 years old. He might look slick in the ring, but he's getting old. It kind of is getting now or never. And in terms of potential, tough opponents, Lima, it really doesn't get much tougher than Lima. So it is now or never. This is a genuine, top class opponent that he's in there with. There has been criticisms. We've just spoke about them. This is a true test, and if he comes past this, well done to him, and he absolutely deserves the title shot. But it's a big if, and I don't think it'll happen. I think Lima should have enough to get by him again.
Yeah.
And before that, we've got Leah McCourt, Jessica Borger. Lots of fun fights on this card. Again, I'm just going to hand it over to you. What stands out?
Yeah, definitely the Leah McCourt fight. I was going to say that because we need challengers for Cyborg. And now we got an international girl there with Leah McCourt coming out of SBG in Ireland. That'll be a good matchup for Cyborg. It'd be something fun to watch because Leah McCourt has kind of a different style, and we kind of want to see a different style against Cyborg. I don't even see anybody else in that division that can give Cyborg a chance unless they do something down the road with a Kayla Harrison. That's something I want to see. If PFL can kind of do a co-promotion with Bellator, which Bellator is always open to doing that. PFL did it with Invicta. Why not do that with Bellator as well? We need to see Cyborg fight somebody different. So I'm going to be watching that Leah McCourt fight very closely. She gets a good win there. She probably can fight Cyborg sometime at the end of the year or maybe next year. Yeah,
and this is the problem with the women's MMA is that they're not as stacked as the men's divisions. And as a fact, we're speaking about Leah McCourt, I think she's 6 fights into her pro career, and she's already getting pushed towards a Cyborg fight, which might not go well for her. But at the same time, Cyborg again is getting up there in age, and maybe now is the time for a young up and comer to come in and maybe dethrone her. But I'd like McCourt to just go through the ranks and work her way up. I expect her to look great in this one. I think she's very marketable. I think she's got that Michael Page factor where she is someone that Bellator want to push and want to do well. But the thing is, there isn't enough, cans, as you called them, for Leah McCourt to fight. She's going to be pushed up very quickly to the top girls. There isn't going to be a long road to that title. I think it will come sooner rather than later. And it'll be interesting to see who she calls out after the fight, where she wants to go, because she might want to slow it down. She might want to pick it up. It's very interesting. And it's a fun night to fight, as a UK guy myself, lots of names standing out. Rob Whiteford, Luke Traynor.
Yeah, Rob Whiteford for sure.
Lots of fun fights there. Very, very gutted that I'm not going. Kane Mooser as well, Lewis Long, Tim Wilde's on there. He's always in great fights. It is really one for the UK fans. And I literally cannot wait. But that main event, it is something else. I'm very glad we got it rebooked. And again, it's a great fight.
Yeah, and I'm glad they're not at the same time as well, because I hate when the Bellator goes after UFC and I got to flip back and forth, or I got to just not watch one, turn my phone off, not look, then watch the next one right after. So I'm glad I get to watch these in separate time periods.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for us in the UK, I think it's going to be a prime time. So very nice not staying up late for that one. But I agree. Bellator, I know they want to compete with the UFC, but they're just not at that level yet. But, take the Friday slot. Do well, because they do put on great fights. As I mentioned, there's lots of fighters on that card I want to see. And if they're clashing with a UFC card or a PFL card, why make someone choose? Why can't we watch them all? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we're all happy.
Yeah. Is there going to be a crowd for that Bellator card?
Yeah. I think it's a full crowd at Wembley.
All right. That's going to be good. Definitely. The crowd's going to be loud for that, because every time they have something come back, they're just ready. Just like the past Joshua and Usyk fight, that crowd was amazing. Yeah,
not quite that. I think there might be about 20,000 in there, or maybe 10. So 10, 20,000. I'm not sure if it's full capacity yet, but for that main event, it will be popping off. MVP, despite the fact he's divisive, I think in London he'll have the crowd behind him. That could be a factor. It's not going to be the nicest walkout for Lima. So be interesting to see that. And before we finish, we'll just talk about some news, because over the last 24 hours we've had several big fight announcements, and someone we talked about earlier, we just touched on. Chris Daukaus is meant to be fighting Derek Lewis. I think that's UFC 270. What do you make of that one?
So they came out last night. I believe his management or his coach said that's not signed yet. We have a fight coming up with his brother. We kind of want to concentrate on that. We kind of want some more time. Listen, you are getting to fight the man who just fought for the heavyweight championship. You're fighting somebody who is number 2 in the world right now. How can you not take that fight, Chris Daukaus? Come on. He just came off an amazing knockout victory, which you could have won in the first round, but the ref kind of gave him a chance. And then the second round, he ended up getting that TKO finish. This is a huge opportunity and such a good fight. And it's for Derek Lewis, it's more of a risk. You lose to a guy like Chris Daukaus, your stock his stock won't go down, but his ranking will go down. Chris Daukaus wins this, you beat Derek Lewis, you're right there in title talks now. Now you can call it the Stipe. He did call out Stipe after that fight. Did he call out Derek Lewis? No, he didn't, because it's a very scary thing to call out Derek Lewis. Chris Daukaus here, even if he loses, let's say he goes in there, he loses to Derek Lewis, that won't kill his stock. That just means they kind of pushed him too fast. But the only thing that's scary is the damage that he might take from Derek Lewis. Because as you can see, when Derek Lewis knocks somebody out, they don't come back too great. And all of a sudden they turn out to big time grapplers and guys who just want to take you down the whole entire time, because that power is very scary. And Derek Lewis coming off that kind of an embarrassing loss in Houston, he wants to make up for that against Daukaus, but I love the matchup.
I was intrigued to see who they'd go with Daukaus next. Obviously, Aspinall seemed like a really good matchup, 2 prospects. But then you've got, this is even better for me. I think, Daukaus will see a route to victory. What Gane did is not, it's not something he can't do. I feel like he could absolutely box Derek Lewis's head off. You've just got to be careful of what's coming back. And very strange fight. Like, for me, it's a really big push, and clearly they think Chris Daukaus is the guy, or they're just trying to get Derek Lewis, some hype back against a fun striker. So very interesting in that one. And I think it was a few hours before that, we got Jared Cannonier against Derek Brunson, UFC 270. Seems to be a middleweight number 1 contender fight. Almost seems to guarantee that we're getting Izzy against Whittaker next. Great fight.
Yeah, I love that fight. And Derek Brunson, that's the fight that he wanted. I know he was calling out Israel Adesanya a couple of times, but we already know Israel Adesanya is taking on Robert Whittaker. That's almost pretty much set in stone for that to happen. Well, for that to happen, not sure where, because you know what's going on with New Zealand and Australia over there. It's a little tough to have a big fight of that capacity. And Israel Adesanya said, I don't ever want to fight New Zealand. He's having big issues with that country over there. But anyways, back to this fight. This is a perfect setup for a number 1 contender. So as soon as Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker finish fighting, boom, you're going to have Brunson or Cannonier to be right there waiting in the wings to get that title shot. Brunson has never had a title shot before. Cannonier has never had a title shot before. They've literally always been right there. Now they're those top 2 guys. Now it's them versus each other, that whoever wins this fight, they're going to get that title shot. I would love to see it. I would love to see Brunson fight Adesanya again. I would love to see Cannonier fight Adesanya. Adesanya always has wanted to fight Cannonier. He feels that it's a different kind of matchup for him. I love it. I love this fight. Yeah, I love it too. And I'm really, it's hard not to root for Brunson at this point. I like the career revival. I think he looked fantastic lately. 3 really tough fights he's put back to back, and he's won them all. Cannonier has seemed to always be there or thereabouts, but the loss against Whittaker, for me, he wasn't really in the fight. So I'm very interested to see who emerges victorious. I think it's just a 3-round fight, which does change things for me. It could be nip and tuck. I expect it to be really close, but
It's a tough fight. I'll reserve picking until fight night. And before that, we got news that Jose Aldo will fight Rob Font. I think, is that in December? Yeah, in December. Yeah. That seems to be another number one contender fight.
I love that fight, but I hope it's they made it official, right?
I think it's been reported by Ariel Helwani and Combate. So yeah,
that's gonna be interesting to see what happens if that does happen, because they still need a guy to fight Peter Yan. I know Corey Sandhagen said that he's healthy, but we don't know if that's true. He came off a very tough fight against TJ Dillashaw. They might pull one of these guys from that fight and slide him into the Peter Yan fight. But if it does happen, this is a great fight. I remember Rob Font talking about how much of an idol Jose Aldo was before he got to the ranks of the UFC. And it's crazy to say that because Jose Aldo is only 33, 34 years old, and Rob Font was watching him when he was younger. And Rob Font is now in the UFC about to fight Jose Aldo, who's still in the top tier of a different division. And that shows you the longevity that Jose Aldo has. Jose Aldo wins this fight, I'm telling you, 100%, they're giving him either TJ Dillashaw or they're giving him a title shot. And either or would be excellent. Rob Font goes in there and he wins this fight, which he so heartily deserves. I feel like he could have deserved a title shot, to be completely honest, because he just beat a former champion and pretty bad in Cody Garbrandt, which was an impressive victory. I would have loved to have seen it, but this is going to be such an interesting styles matchup because both of these guys can stand and bang. Different styles in a sense of Jose is heavy on the kicking game. Still is good on the boxing game as well, but I hope Rob Font doesn't have a, oh my God, this is my idol kind of situation in there and freezes up. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think if it was Peter Yan who pulled out and Aljamain was left looking for an opponent, Jose Aldo would be the one getting a call. I feel like everyone was high off him after his last performance. He looks fantastic. And, to have his name value in that main event slot would be great for the UFC. But it is hard to justify a Peter Yan rematch. He did start well, but he faded bad and it was a beating in the end. So putting him in with someone like Rob Font, it's a really big opportunity for both guys because Aldo can continue to build his brand in bantamweight and work his way back into the title shot with a win over someone you've just said, how impressive he's been. And Font has probably not got the name value, to head up a pay-per-view and be towards the top against Peter Yan, who is not necessarily a huge name either. So I think if he goes out there, gets a big one over Jose Aldo, then it's hard to deny him as well. So bantamweight for me is the funnest division in UFC at the minute. I love it. There's so much going on, especially at the top, with as TJ coming back in and Corey Sandhagen looking fantastic too. So lots going on, and that's just another great fight, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think Jose Aldo is much more comfortable making that 135 weight class now. So if he does Peter Yan again, I feel like he'll have a little bit more longevity in the fight rather than the first time when that was only the second time he made 135.
Yeah, and just before I let you go, obviously at the weekend we had UFC 266, lots of great moments, but the standout one for a lot of people was Nick Diaz returning. Didn't go his way, but he looked good in parts. People say he might have give up or quit at the end. Does he fight again? And if so, who do you want to see him in there with?
I personally don't need to see Nick Diaz fight again. Like, I've seen enough in his career and all the great moments that he had. He's definitely on the older side of his career. He's taken a lot of damage. Took a lot of damage in that fight as well. But I feel that if he actually trained, I don't think he really trained for this fight, he would look really good. His boxing looked good. Everybody was saying, oh, he looks slow. This is not. No, his boxing looked really crisp. He was hitting Robbie with body shots to the head. He was throwing a lot of punches. He threw a lot of punches. There's a lot of guys who don't even get to that striking total at the end of the fight. If he can actually put a solid camp together, train for a good year or a year and a half, I think he can come back very well. Matchups I'd see him coming back against. I don't think anybody in that top 15, that's probably not the smartest move because these guys are just in different kinds of shape. If he's mentally there and he wants to do it, because as you can see, he asked for the fight at 185 for a reason. There's a lot of personal things that he's going through in his life. We saw him post pictures back in the summer or before the summer, and he looked more cut then. I don't know what happened between that time and this time, but clearly something has happened. But I can see him come back maybe in a main event, not on a pay-per-view card, against somebody that would give him a fun performance. It would be a fun back and forth kind of a matchup, but that's up to him if he wants to do that. I personally don't need to see it. But if it happens, it happens.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, I would prefer to see him ride off in the sunset with a bag full of money, but it doesn't seem like that's happening. I'm also, disappointed that he didn't seem to get the full camp that he wanted for this. He came in, for me, it was a 50-50 fight heading into fight week. And then once all the hijinks started happening and things started changing, it's hard to pick him. And that's the way it went. As you said, he looked good in spurts. He threw a lot of shots. He just couldn't keep it up for, the 15 minutes or the 25 minutes. And if he wants to come back, it'd be great to see him. I think someone like Mccourty could be a fun fight. Obviously not a highly ranked guy anymore. Probably hasn't been at his best for a while, but at the same time, that's a fun fight, and they can both make a bunch of money and have some fun. But as you say, I'm not dying to see Nick Diaz fight again, and it'll be interesting to see what happens and see what he has to say. But let's see what happens.
Yeah, I love that. I love that matchup. Nick Diaz versus Mccourty. That would be excellent. I love that matchup. I like that.
Yeah, wait, my idea actually, that was Sean O'Malley's. I was writing a story about it today. He proposed that one. Very fun fight, and definitely interesting to see what Perry does next. I think he's on to his final fight in the UFC, and to go out with a bang against Nick Diaz, it all depends on what Nick has to say, and I'm sure he'll have something to say in the coming days and weeks. That's pretty much it from me. Do you want to add anything before we wrap up?
No, definitely excited for the fights coming up this weekend. We had great ones last weekend, and we have a lot of cards coming up back to back. I'm just excited for everything, all this action that's going to be happening at the end of this year. Loaded cards. UFC 267 is loaded. 268 is crazy. That's going to happen in New York. I love it. I love this sport, and thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
No, I'm hopefully have you again soon, and can't wait for the fight. Can't wait to chat to you again, and thanks guys for watching.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.